where God is about to untie some things out of your life. Let me get to this real quick. Y'all sit down real quick. Untie me.
Way to go.
Because the Lord needs me. Here we have Jesus about 5 days away from his crucifixion. 5 days away from his earthly ministry about to end. He has performed many miracles up to this point. He's fed the 5,000. He's fed the multitude with a little boy's lunch. He's gave sight to the blind. He went into the temple and overturned the temple and built it back up in 3 days. He's turned water into wine. He's performed a lot of miracles up to this point. Now his ministry was about to fulfill itself with the cross. Now he was on his way into Jerusalem, not for the first time, but for the last time. But he had to fulfill the prophecy which was said in Zechariah 9 and 10, that the daughters of Zion, behold, your king is coming with you, lonely and sitting on a donkey, a colt, or a foal of a donkey. So in other words, Jesus was fulfilling prophetically what was in the Old Testament. And so he got to a place where he had to know he was only about a half a day's journey from Jerusalem. But the prophecy had to be fulfilled that he rode into Jerusalem on a colt. Understand that when Jesus got to a place where he said Bethphage, a house of unripe figs, he told his disciples, I need you to go into the other village, there where you'll find a donkey and a colt. But the thing about this donkey and the thing about this colt is that this donkey and this colt was tied up.
Yes, sir.
Not only was this donkey and this colt tied up, but this donkey and this colt had never been ridden.
That's right.
And so you got to understand that anything that is tied up, you got to understand that it means that it's prohibited. Anything that is tied up in this day and time was declared to be illicit. Anything that is tied up is declared to be binded together. And if any animal was tied up at the time, the tying represents that the animal is not being used. And sometimes if an animal is not being used, it could be meaning one or two things: that the animal got tired and he needed some rest, or the animal was not only being used, but the animal was not usable.
Watch out, sir. Right.
And so what the animals then are so too, when you're tied up, is only restricted to the mobility, to the length of the rope. Some of us today are so tied up with things that we have been prohibited to the blessings of God because we're tied up with stuff. But I came to declare to somebody today, untie me because the Lord needs me.
That's a good word.
You got to understand that your movement, the movement of the colt, is only prohibited by the length of the rope. And this is the season where I just said that God is going to untie some things in your life. Things that got you bound, things that got you tied up, things that got you thinking like God can't use you. Things in your past, you're tied to stuff in your past. You're tied to your mistakes. You're tied to your brokenness. You're tied to broken promises. You're tied to addictions. You're tied to a sickness. But God is saying, I need you. So I got to untie you so I can use you.